G'day Internet, my name is Andrew Russell and welcome to City Ransom Underground. This is a show that I've wanted to do for a while, where I talk a little bit about some of the technical features that I've been working on for City Ransom. So to start with, let me give you a bit of history. So back when I started working on City Ransom Underground, when they brought me onto the project, initially as the network developer and then eventually as the engine developer and lead programmer, I wanted to do some devlog videos about how development was going and some of the stuff that I was working on back then. And so I made these two videos, so Technical Devlog 1 and Technical Devlog 2, and they're all talking about network features, so, you know, talking about frames over here and so on. And the problem that I quickly found with doing devlog videos is that trying to keep to like a regular schedule was quite difficult, and also the production values that I was going for were way too high to kick these videos out regularly. And what you find often is if you try and do a regular devlog video, some weeks, you know, you might be working on a huge problem that doesn't really doesn't make for good video. For example, if I spend a week on, say, optimization, it's like, well, it looks exactly the same as it did last week, but now it's, you know, it's 20% faster. So it becomes a bit difficult to make regular videos like this. So a little while after that, a gentleman named Casey Muratori started a video series called Handmade Hero, which you can find at handmadehero.org, and this is a still frame from his promo video of him. And the way he introduces this series is it's the show where he codes a complete game live on stream on Twitch from start to finish, from scratch, no engines, no libraries. It's all hand coded. And it's a wonderful resource. It's really fabulous. But one of the things that I took away from watching Handmade Hero is that it would be better to make a video with lower production values, essentially, and, you know, to be able to do more of them more easily and take less time away from programming. So I had this idea kicking around in the back of my head for a while, and, you know, and like Handmade Hero, I've got my drawing tablet, and, you know, I'm using OBS to record this, so, you know, so there's a lot of inspiration taken from Handmade Hero. And so I've had this idea kicking around for a while that I would do a lower production value video series. And, you know, I've been working very hard on City Ransom Underground, so I just haven't got around to it prior to this point. Anyway, I've been watching Handmade Hero on and off, like when I'm cooking and stuff. And a little while ago, Handmade Hero episode 299 came around, and in that episode, something interesting happened. As Casey started talking about 2D sorting for drawing in 2D, or 2.5D, let's say, and, you know, he was going over a whole lot of stuff that I have had trouble with. I don't think my notebook's in reach, but my notebook is full of diagrams that are very similar to the ones Casey draws in episodes 298 and 299. And it's, you know, how do you come up with a system that draws these objects onto the screen? And, you know, I'm watching this, I'm like, I know how to do this, Casey. I've done this. I know how to do this, and, you know, there's some tricks to it. So what I did was I decided, well, what a perfect time to do some of what I was wanting to do, and that is talk about some of the technical features. So I wasn't able to get a video done sort of in time. But what I did do is I made this blog post, how 2.5D sorting works in City Ransom Underground, And I put that up on my website, and I sent Casey a link on Twitter. And, I talk about, here's episode 299, and here's the scene, and we sort it, and, there's a graph situation, and that's all good. So, anyway, the next day, episode 300 of Handmade Hero, Casey shows this off, and he's like, here's what Andrew has sent us in, and it's really cool. Here's how he's done it, and it's a challenging problem. And I think Casey appreciated having someone else sort of confirm, this is actually a non-trivial thing to sort out. Literally. And then on episode 301, and I think I have the audio here, I managed to actually make it into chat for that stream. Normally, I don't make it into Handmade Hero chat because, time zone differences and I'm working and so on. But I came in and Casey showed me, here's some of his tool stuff that he's done. It was really cool to see. And I've just gone away from the timestamp.
That would.
So this is really cool. So I encourage you to watch it. So an hour 20, but watch the whole thing. Anyway, I've lost my spot. But anyway, the point is that towards the end, Casey says, if you've got any more of these blog posts that I did, you should post them. And Casey, you're absolutely right. I should post some more of these, but I want to do videos because that gives me a chance to show off in sort of more detail what's going on. So that's the backstory. So what I'm going to do is basically. So there's a sort of extra point that I also have to thank Casey for, and that is. He does a podcast with Jeff Roberts, and one of the things that I've noticed they do is they record a whole lot of episodes back to back and then release them one at a time, and so that sort of solves the problem for me of how do I get a lot of content without sort of constantly interrupting the programming work that I'm doing. I don't have to stick to a recording schedule. I can just stick to a release schedule. So that's what I'm going to do. So anyway, in this first episode, let's say, what I am going to do is I'm going to show off a lot of what I talked about in this blog post, and then in the next episode, I will also show something that is inspired by Handmade Hero. So I'll release those two at once. Just to get things rolling, and then I'll release maybe, it depends how many I do, but maybe I'll do 2 a week, and we'll see how that goes. Each one talking about a different feature. So let's start talking about the sorting in River City Ransom Underground. So, drink. That was a lot of talking. So, first of all, let me just run the game here. And so just like Handmade Hero, we've got our editor loading. This will take a little while because OBS is running, and it's a debug build, so it'll take a little while to load. So this is the scene that I was demonstrating in the blog post. So we've got the characters, and they can jump. They can run into things. I can move them around, and what I can do is I can use my developer keys, and I can show here are the sorting arrows that we talked about in the blog post, and what each of these arrows is a pairing of two objects in the scene and the order they should draw in. So for example, this arrow here is the base of the rock formation here, and it's pointing up to Alex and up to the second tier of rocks. And so that's saying, you know, draw this one first, and then draw Alex, and then draw the rocks after this one. And in fact, you've got an arrow here that's saying, you know, here's Alex, and he draws in front of the second tier of rocks. So second tier of rocks, and then Alex. So you've got this system where it says, definitely do the base first, and then the second tier, and then Alex, if that was the 3 objects in the scene. But we have a lot more objects. So the way it works this out, and I've got to remember, I use the menu of dev keys, but bounding boxes. So here are the bounding boxes of objects in the scene, and you can see that, you know, when Alex intersects the bounds of these rocks, he gets an arrow, and if he walks away, the sorting no longer cares about the order between these two. So that doesn't get involved in the sorting mechanism. So that's how the overall sort works. Basically, it takes all of the pairs of objects that care about each other in the scene, and it forms an ordering between each pair, and then it does a graph sort, which you know, if you're really keen on the technical details, go and watch Handmade Hero from episode 300 or so, because Casey actually tries to implement, you know, this sort of thing, and so you get a lot more detail about what you can do here. But anyway, so that's how the scene works, and then I can do what I did in some of the screenshots from the blog post, and that is, in fact, I can switch it up here. Oops. There it goes. There we go. Okay, so yeah, you know, I set up OBS for this beforehand, so I can start inserting objects into the scene. So I can insert a car, and you can see, you know, as I drag it around the scene, it changes ordering. And what you saw there, if I can reproduce it, in fact, I'll pop that car down there, you can see this red arrow here. What we've got here is a cycle in the sorting graph, and what that means is there's no correct ordering for these objects, and this often happens if you've got like large complicated objects intersecting each other. So what this red arrow means is that the sorting, the thing that comes up with an overall ordering for the entire scene, like from how do we draw this from back to front, it's decided that that's the ordering that it's going to ignore to allow it to form that back to front ordering, because if that arrow were included, there'd be a cycle in this graph. It's a bit tricky to find it with this thing, but yeah, so there to there to there to there is a cycle. And so obviously what that means is that each object there is in front of each other one. So if I think I can do this. Can I do this with my no, I don't have enough fingers. It's like it's the painter's algorithm problem. So if I bring up this amazing sort of technical situation where I can record windows. So if I bring up the painter's dilemma, so this is just Wikipedia. So it's basically this problem here. You know, it doesn't, like, you can't draw these in order. They actually overlap each other in different ways. So that's the issue that happens there. So just to finish off that, I'll reset the scene by changing levels. So I can insert a bunch of crates, for example. You'll notice the arrows are going up. That's just to separate them out a bit. If I hold down Control, they all point at exactly the object, but each one gets a little bit of a vertical offset to just separate them out to make life easier. So yeah, I can add these things into the scene, and I can pick things up and, you know, throw them down there, and they've got a bit of physics. And point is, you know, it all sort of works the way you'd expect it to work. So, and then if I go back to this menu, so I can insert the car here, and I can drag it around, and it sorts correctly in the scene. So if I'll just leave the car over here for now. I have other objects. So I've got Portaloo. You I can drag it up here, and I can put it behind or in front of these objects, and I can put it in between these two objects. So that's how the scene sort works. Let's talk a little bit about how let's talk a little bit about how the objects sort in relation to each other. So each object, if I hit tab here, each object is essentially a height map. So you can see that there. If I turn on, so these boxes here are the movable actors in the scene. And so, I'm just holding down Control so you can see the full effect. I can leave that, and you got the small view and the big view of the height maps. So, point being is that each object in the scene is either it's a flat object straight up and down, or it's a height map. And so what happens is, so here's a thing. Turn off some of the extra debug stuff. So you can see that there's these lines that I can drag up and down that show what we call depth slices. And if I turn off that, you can see that there's a front and a back depth slice. So what I'll do is I'll switch over to my testing program that shows this off a lot better. Although what I will do before I do that, if I can remember the keys. So the ones that appear here are depth slices. So remember this for later. These are depth slices that are actually participating in sorts. So if I take that away from, if I take this crate away from here, its depth slice doesn't participate in the sort. But if I do that, and if I jump, you'll see that, I'll get rid of this. But Alex's depth slice, if I jump and I pause, so you can see that there's the depth slice here, which I'm not sure which object the lower one is associated with, but this upper one, here is what's being compared with Alex there. So just remember that for the next little bit of demo. So I'm going to close that. So now I'm going to load up something I call visual tests, which is sort of my testing environment. So I've prepared a few assets earlier. So I'm going to load up the car. Whoops. So I can drag that on here and drag on Alex. So this is just his sort of, doesn't have a set animation. So I can, if I hit S on my little debug system, I can sort, can activate the sort. So I can drag him there and sort, and drag him there and sort, and I can put him there, and whoops, need to actually be able to touch him to drag him around. Can change him up vertically on top of the thing and sort. We'll figure out why that didn't work later. I'm hitting the wrong key. There we go. So he's now actually on top of the car. It's a bit hard to tell because there's no shadow and so on. But if I set him down to ground level, there he is. Yeah, so it's a bit tricky to keep track of things. So what happens is if they're not making, if their bounding boxes are not overlapping, there's nothing to sort. But if they do overlap, say there, turn that off, he sorts in front there, and if I put him behind, he sorts behind. And what this is doing is, if I bring up tab, in fact this is be easy to see. So I'll show, so there's Alex, it works with Alex, but I'll show it with this arcade cabinet because it's a bit easier to see because they both have they're both solid objects, so they have a height map associated with them, and so you can see that there. That's the height map. So if I turn that off and turn that off, you can see this one sorts in front there, and if I move him behind, it sorts behind, and you can see the height map is behind and the height map is in front physically, and the two red bounding boxes show that they overlap, so the sort will actually take place. Okay, so the way this works is if they're definitely in front or behind, that's a very simple thing to test. It's the same if I drag him up onto the roof of the car. That's a very definite test. I can zero that out and do the same thing with the car. If I drag that onto the top of the thing and hide that, did I do that correctly? Drag him up. The car's got a baked in shadow, I think. I'm not sure we removed that for the actual game. But so you can see that the car is now sorting above, and if I zero that back down, they sort normally. So the basic in front or behind is obvious. What is more interesting is if they are overlapping. So if I turn on that, you can see here that they're not clearly in front or behind of each other. In fact, I can make them overlap like that. So what the sorting system does is it looks at the lowest common depth slice between the two objects. So you can see I've got the two, and the reason it can look at the lowest one is that, and this is the bit where I can pull up my drawing system. So let's give this a go. Let's see how well it works. Let's say I have orange, good, an object in 3D. And the thing about it being a height map is that now we go for the real serious production values, because I'm going to change colors here. This depth slice at this depth is always going to be strictly larger than the depth slice at this depth, at this height, sorry. So, if I projected that down to here, it would be in there. So what that means, basically, is when we do these depth comparisons, we only need to look at one slice, and that's the lowest one that's common between the two. So if I now grab the arcade cabinet and I move him upwards and sort, and I move him a bit more upwards, you can see that the one that I'm dragging, I can't remember how to turn that one off. There we go. So you can see that the outline here is the one that's being considered, because that's the lowest one that's common between the two objects, because this is sitting on the bonnet of the car. So in fact, you can see that in the 3D view. You can see if I can clip him into there. So the way this works is, if I put that down there, it basically looks at how far away each pixel is. So this means that you can do a 1D comparison between the two relevant depth bounds to figure out who's in front. And then there's a whole lot of sort of tuning that tries to figure out the best way to draw it if they happen to interpenetrate. So, I'm not too worried about the fact that, the arcade cabinet's suddenly drawing behind, because it's actually inside the car. So that is a situation that typically shouldn't happen in the game. So what I can do is, if I put this back on the bonnet, you can see then finally there's this, I'll start doing the draggy one again. Here we go. So you can see that as I go up, there's this blue section to the left of the car. And what that basically means is that for all of the pixels along this part of the depth slice, there's stuff under you, but there's nothing at that point. So basically, if the algorithm reads something there, it knows that so you're above by 29 pixels per for the entire test. So that tells you to sort in front because you're actually above. Whereas if we're down here, zero that out and sort again, you know, with 0 pixels above, but we're negative 35 pixels gap in there. So I believe, I can't remember how the tuning on these works, but yeah. So, and then there's one last thing that we do, and that is, I'm not sure these objects actually do it. Where's my bounds? Yeah, so there are some objects where the bounds, in fact, yeah, this bounds is 1 pixel larger than the car bound, so I should be able to, yeah, do that. And so what it does there, even though none of the slices overlap, it actually projects that final pixel out, and it has a little bit of clever logic about how it does that projection out from the points to figure out who's overlapping who, even if there's no depth slice information. So that's how the depth slices work. And so all of that comes together. So each time there's a pair of objects that are overlapping each other with their boundaries, that's what we test. And then, so we feed that into the sorting thing. And so this is another picture from the blog post. So this one here, and I'll just show you how that works. So I can make a whole bunch of, you know, nodes for a graph, and I can link them together. And so, you know, and I believe the numbers, yeah, the black numbers in particular, are what the graph sort is outputting for the actual order. So it counts down. So 6 draws, 6 is going to draw, and then 5, and then 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. So you'll notice that 0 draws last, but he's in front of everybody else. And then one is second last, but he is also, you know, in front of everybody else except 0. So so it's 1 then 0. So the final thing that I can do is I can introduce a cycle into the graph, and this is just demonstrating the algorithm that I use for essentially removing these cycles. And so what it does is it picks one of the edges in the graph, and it just deletes it and says, yeah, we're not going to pay any attention to that constraint. There's a little bit of logic behind which one gets deleted, and the primary thing that we pay attention to with deleting the edges is temporal consistency. So that means that you're not going to, you know, it's not going to delete this edge on one frame and then on another frame delete this edge, because you want to avoid having a depth flickering. That's sort of the primary goal. So I'd rather it be wrong if you like it's better if it's wrong and you have to like pay attention to the screen to find that out than, you know, it flicking between two things and drawing attention to itself. So, and then you know, if I add in another cycle, yeah, so this is a particularly large graph that requires deleting 2 edges to get rid of that cycle, and then you still only have to delete 2 edges, but there we go. So this all counts as one cycle, and so it goes through and deletes those. But if I can, yeah, there we go. So I can also make a graph that has multiple cycles in it, and it will deal with that situation until, yeah, there we go. So yeah, so that's how the graph sort works, and yeah, so that's pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about the graph sort. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely go and watch Handmade Hero, because it's quite good, very, very educational. And yeah, so in the next video I'm going to talk about another feature that we have in the engine, and that is directly inspired by Handmade Hero, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you next time. And I'll find out where the stop recording button is. Here we go.